Professor Eugenia Smirnova, dear colleagues, I'm going to talk to you about Evolution Part 2, and this keynote is about disruptive innovation using flipped classroom model. Let's talk more deeply about this subject. And an overview of the future depends on what will be in the future and what disruptive innovation we will have. We have to think a little bit about that because China says that the history is like a crystal ball on which we can see a shadow of the future. But in fact, the future we have in front of us is a disruptive innovation future. This means that we have enormous challenge, we have enormous modifications, and it's much more that the future today is very complex. Disruptive is like a quantum jump for the future in front of us. To dream the future, we should listen to experts with their experience, their eyes with a focus in the future, and their reflections. That's what we are going to do exactly. And our life will change dramatically over the next 20 years, according to Mercedes CEO. What does he say? He says that Daimler-Benz Mercedes CEO has in mind that our competitors are no longer the other automobile companies, but Tesla, a triad that integrates Google, Apple, and Amazon. This is something very strange in front of us, but software houses will bring down most of traditional industries in the next 5 to 10 years. More, bankruptcy. Most automobile companies are likely to go to bankrupt in the next decade. But we have electric cars. Electric cars will become the standard after 2020. And Mercedes double class A is just now
Isn't
available.
It amazing how much of our world is powered by something so small? There are a million uses for these little wonders. Well, make that 1,000,001. Introducing the Mercedes AA Class, the first fully electric luxury sedan powered entirely by AA batteries. No more plugs, just 9,648 AA batteries. And ample trunk space to store extra batteries. And it is the only luxury sedan to receive the prestigious AA Plus grade from Batteries Magazine. The Mercedes AA Class Luxury Sedan.
This is a jokey way of seeing our world in the future, but it has a lot of truth behind it. More, autonomous cars in 2018. The first cars of auto driving will be available to the public in that year. This is the way of the future. You will call a car using your phone. It will be just in front of you and will take you from your location to your destination. So easy like this. But more, this will change dramatically our cities because we'll need much less cars in the future. And from this, our cities will be less noisy. Today, largest taxi company in the world is Uber, but it's just a software company tool and they don't own cars. The same is happening in tourism. In hotels, the biggest hotel company is Airbnb, although they do not own any hotels. This is something very confusing in front of us, but in the last decade, more solar and wind energy were installed in the world than fossil fuel. A big change. 3D printing are just in front of us today. The price of cheapest 3D printers has dropped down from about $18,000 to $400 during the last decade. That is another aspect. Simultaneously, it becomes much more efficient, about 100 times more efficient than they were 10 years ago. The major footwear companies already make shoes with 3D printing. But about 3D printing again, in about a little bit more than 1 decade, 10% of everything will be produced using 3D printing. In the next decade, organs will be transplanted, will be printed in 3D in the operation room and immediately used. But Sony registered just a few months ago contact lens that you can capture images, record these videos, and see them again. So this is the future that we have in front of us. A business of opportunities in 20th century may not be available and may not survive in the 21st century. Reflect about that. Our protein deficit will increase in the future. Insects and worms protein will be in the market all over the world. They will be called or labeled as alternative protein sources. In agriculture, there will be a $100 crop robot in the future for every farm. This is the future. The top 10 jobs in 2010 didn't exist in 2004. Between 1/3 and 50% of existing jobs in the 20th century will disappear during the 21st century. And the question is, there will be a lot of new jobs. It is unclear whether there will be enough new jobs for anyone. So it's enormous, a huge challenge in front of us. Gamification will be a must, will be a way of motivating people for everything, for any kinds important daily activities are turned into games and operation and appealing actions. Let's have a look about it. Even to take out a tooth, you can use a game. And the children is motivated and he didn't realize that anything wrong happened. So this is a new challenge. But more about today in education. About today in education, everything is totally different. We are starting to use methods and technologies developed about 2 decades ago or more. But we will evolve from a behaviorist technologies and traditional classroom to a constructivist flipped classroom. This is the challenge of the future. But let's see a student starting a 4-year technical degree. This means that half of what they are learning in the first year of study will be outdated by the 3rd year. This is an enormous evolution when we are currently preparing students for jobs that don't yet exist, using technologies that haven't been invented, and to solve problems that we don't even know that they are problems yet. A course today is a 4 years of introduction for 40 years of life learning. This is what we have in front of us. And the evolution is dramatic, is exponential. But it is much more than that. In fact, we are facing a disruptive innovation, a disruptive evolution. And this is what we really have in front of us. Let's see a little more about disruptive innovation in the school of the future. In the next decade, flipped classroom learning model will have enormous increasing because it uses a more involving and motivation technologies and methods. By 2020, 70% of all humans will own a smartphone. That means that everyone all over the world will have access to all education information and contents available. The cheapest smartphone today in Africa and Asia costs $10, no more than that. In the next years, it will be normal. Documents will be sent by mail and will be printed in 3D to be received in Braille if necessary. Just like this, learners will have all contents available in video text, like YouTube, like Vimeo, like SlideShares, and things like this. The only thing is to know how to learn. YouTube education is available for everyone with a lot of contents in all languages. Khan Academy. Today, each teacher can recommend to their students to use the Khan Academy for everything a child needs to learn in school, in first world countries, or in any other. Today, Google Education is available for all over the world with contents for all kinds of things and in very different languages. But more, the same top of the line lessons are available in our language of the world. Google Translator for Business is available to translate toolkits, websites, and everything you need for your learning process. But more, internet users. In 2010, there were 1.8 billion people using internet. In 2017, are 3 billion. But in 2022 and 2025 will be more than 90% of world humankind using internet. Google Cultural Institute, founded in 2011. The Google Cultural Institute is a non-profitable initiative that partners with cultural organizations bring to world, and you can offer this service, these contents, these virtual visits to your students wherever you are, and if you have internet, of course. And education in the future. Let's reflect a little bit more about this. Teachers' mission and skills are present contents, guide students, access, and evaluate. Finally, more, we should be experts in one area. Pedagogic and didactic skills are absolutely necessary, and digital skills as well are so important that you need them for everything. About to be a teacher in the future means that should be an expert in a scientific area. It should be to know how to teach with new methodologies and ICT tools, and as well to teach how to learn. These are the basic things in the shadow of the future. And what to do? Convert schools into factory of dreams. Teachers into didactic communication wizards. Convert students' potential into teachers' passions. And motivate students with what they like. Multimedia, digital contents, new technologies, and we will have a real school of the future, motivating, involving, and giving quality and information, the necessary one. Okay, but we are facing a revolution, and this revolution is of sharing. multimedia, thinking, communicate. This is digital storytelling necessary for involving and to give all this information for everyone. But more, traditional models. They were instructivist models, tutor-centered models, student-centered discovery actions. But today, we have more than that. We have video lessons. In 2 decades, we'll be using regularly methods and technologies to develop today. And these lessons are constructivist learning models, collaborative, experimental, problem-based learning models, and it can be like a mixed solution, integrating all of them. Models should be selected and adjusted according to the majority of the learner, as well to the contents to be studied, and can be used in a hybrid format. So this is something that the teacher should know how to guide and how to use this kind of materials and models. A new model is flipped classroom model. It is an introduction strategy and type of blended learning that reverses the traditional learning environment by delivering instructional contents, often online, outside the classroom, and after the student get prepared, they will be the real presence or online classroom, and it moves activity, including those that may have traditional been used and considered as homework. So it means that before we put the students in face of new contents, new methods, they should be prepared for the activities in classroom should be more interactive, and they can profit much more out of that. So the classic lesson was presenting contents, question and answers, and recommended homework. The flipped classroom is different. Flipped classroom's contents should be presented on demand in video and text, asynchronous tutoring, personal reflection and debates with mates, and synchronous tutoring, classroom debates and questions and answers. So this is something that involve, motivate, and we can have much better results from the learning process. Since Jonathan Bergman and Aaron Sams first experimented with this idea in the Colorado classrooms in 2004, flipped learning has explored a large amount of teachers involved in this process. But very strange, it is one of the hottest topics in education for several years and still running today, and it's not finished yet. But from my experience, I realized that start to use this model in 2002 when I start to use videos, delivering these videos to my students and so on and so on. And I got really surprised when I start to listen about flipped classrooms, because I was just using it many years ago and even before 2004. I should say that we have all of these contents available, and let's have a look about it. The contents are available, and they will be available in many areas: video publications, reflections, and so on. This is a site developed by me, and these contents are available free, open. Let's have a look how does it works. About, let's say, online tutoring. We have a document in English, but we can translate in another language. Let's make it, for instance, in Spanish, and automatically the document is converted in Spanish language. But I want it as well in Portuguese language. How shall I make it? Portuguese. Ok? Online tutoring, tutoria online, de acordo com vários especialistas. Ok, but I prefer in Russian. Let's have a look if it is possible to make it in Russian as well. Okay, here we have Russian and it's available in Russian. But this is concerning the text format. The question is about the videos. And if I want to go into the videos, what I can do is, for instance, find if it's possible to use subtitles. And I can select subtitles in English, Portuguese, Russian, Spanish, and I can have Ukrainian and other automatic translations. Let's have a look if it works in Russian. Yes, it does. But let us imagine that you want another language than the other that have been translated before. So we can select automatic translation, and in automatic translation you can choose one of the available languages. Let's imagine that I want Polish. I will select Polish and I will have subtitles available in Polish, as you can see. So we can cover all over the world with these videos and with these text documents. Okay, another thing is, are you ready for disruptive innovation to the school of the future using a flipped classroom model? Yes, we can. But pay attention. Have you used regularly flipped classroom models with your students? Okay, my suggestion is, if you didn't, don't try to make a MOOC with traditional models. It will not work properly. Be careful. It's your credibility on the table. Thank you very much for your attention.